The All Blacks produced a dominant 54-0 victory over the Sharks in Durban, but while the scoreline tells the story of a one-sided contest, there were several individual performances and talking points that deserve a closer look. For New Zealand, the match provided another opportunity to build confidence during their South African campaign, while for the Sharks, it was a difficult evening in which they struggled to match the visitors' intensity for long periods. One of the biggest talking points, however, came from a player whose presence alone had already attracted enormous attention before kickoff, Ma'a Nonu. The veteran center made his return to the international stage against his former team, and although he only spent around 20 minutes on the field, he immediately brought a level of physicality and aggression that changed the atmosphere of the match. Before he even entered the game, Nonu had already delivered a memorable solo haka, facing the All Blacks in an emotional moment that highlighted the unusual circumstances surrounding this fixture. Then, once he stepped onto the field, the veteran showed that his competitive edge has not disappeared. Nonu was involved in several powerful collisions and brought energy to the Sharks at a time when the match was already heavily tilted in New Zealand's favor. His appearance was ultimately brief, but it became one of the most memorable elements of the night, particularly because of the history between Nonu and the All Blacks. His performance also raises an interesting question about how much the experienced center could still contribute if his body allows him to maintain the demands of top-level rugby. There was no suggestion that one cameo suddenly changes the selection picture, but his impact was certainly noticeable. While Nonu provided the emotional storyline, another center produced one of the most complete performances of the evening. Jordy Barrett continued to demonstrate why he has become such an important figure in the All Blacks midfield. Playing at inside center, Barrett showed excellent control over the game, combining his physical presence with intelligent decision-making and a willingness to bring other players into the action. One particularly impressive aspect of his performance was the way he allowed Ruben Love to operate at fly-half while taking responsibility for much of the decision-making outside him. Rather than simply acting as another runner, Barrett appeared comfortable directing the attack and choosing when to distribute, carry, or shift the point of attack. His passing was sharp, his hands were reliable, and his understanding of space helped New Zealand maintain pressure on the Sharks' defense. He was eventually rewarded with a try around the hour mark, adding a finishing touch to what had already been an influential performance. For the All Blacks, performances like this are particularly valuable because they show how the midfield can function when players understand their roles and communicate effectively. Barrett has experience at multiple positions, but his display at number 12 once again highlighted how effective he can be when given the opportunity to control the game from the inside center channel. Another player who gave Dave Rennie plenty to consider was Fifianganofo. The young forward did not produce a completely flawless performance, but his overall contribution was highly encouraging. He carried the ball strongly, worked hard defensively, and found himself in dangerous attacking positions throughout the contest. His numbers reflected that involvement with 6 tackles, 12 carries, and a turnover, while he also crossed the line twice. His attacking performance was especially noticeable because he repeatedly found opportunities to break through the Sharks' defense. Fifianganofo finished with 3 line breaks and covered 61 meters with the ball, demonstrating the kind of direct running and attacking intent that can make a difference at international level. There were mistakes as well, including 3 occasions when he conceded possession, but the overall balance of his performance remained positive. For a player looking to establish himself in the All Blacks environment, this was the type of outing that can strengthen his case. Rennie will know that consistency is just as important as flashes of attacking quality, but there was enough here to suggest that Fifianganofo is developing into a player worth watching closely. At scrum half, Preston also took advantage of an unexpected opportunity. Cam Roigard was removed from the squad as a precaution before the match, while Cortez Radama came into the picture, leaving the relatively inexperienced Preston with the responsibility of starting at number 9. For a player making his first test start, the assignment could hardly have been more unusual. He was playing away from home, against a South African side, with expectations on the All Blacks to perform. Yet Preston looked composed from the opening stages. His passing was controlled, his kicking showed good awareness, and he appeared comfortable managing the tempo of the match. Rather than allowing the occasion to overwhelm him, he looked increasingly confident as the game progressed. One of his most entertaining moments came when he helped create the opportunity for Nonu late in the contest, adding another memorable chapter to an already unusual evening. For Preston, the biggest takeaway may simply be that he looked capable of handling the responsibility placed on him. The result was also a clear indication of how difficult the night became for the Sharks. At the beginning, there was still the possibility that the home side could make the contest competitive, but New Zealand steadily took control. The first half remained relatively respectable from the Sharks' perspective, yet the momentum increasingly moved towards the All Blacks. By around the 62nd minute, New Zealand had built a 42-point lead without conceding a single point. From there, the outcome was effectively settled. The All Blacks continued to apply pressure across the field, and the Sharks struggled to find a consistent way to slow them down. It was not simply about one area of the game. New Zealand were able to create opportunities with ball in hand, maintain pressure through their forwards, and take advantage of defensive openings when they appeared. For the Sharks, the challenge was made even greater by the absence of many of their leading international players, a reality that often affects the competitiveness of Super Rugby sides when they face an international team. That difference in available personnel became increasingly visible as the match progressed. Still, the result was not the only talking point surrounding the fixture. The crowd was another issue that attracted attention. Given the unusual nature of the match and the return of Ma'a Nonu to the global stage, there was considerable interest surrounding the occasion, yet the attendance did not appear to match the significance of the event. Matches between international teams and Super Rugby clubs are relatively uncommon, which made this particular fixture something of a special occasion. The opportunity to see the All Blacks play the Sharks in Durban, combined with Nonu facing his former side, created a storyline that could have generated a memorable atmosphere. Instead, the relatively modest crowd became one of the disappointments of the evening. It is a reminder that rugby fixtures of this nature depend not only on what happens on the field but also on the support surrounding them. Another unusual detail was the kit situation. Both teams wore colors that made certain moments at the breakdown difficult to distinguish, particularly when players from both sides converged around the ball. It did not affect the result, and with such a large gap on the scoreboard, it was hardly a decisive factor, but it was still an unnecessary visual complication. The Sharks already have an all-white strip available, so using a clearer contrast could have made the contest easier to follow. In a closer game, small details like this can become much more noticeable, even if they never become a genuine explanation for the result. Ultimately, though, the biggest story from Durban was the scale of New Zealand's dominance. A 54-0 scoreline leaves little doubt about which side controlled the contest. The All Blacks were efficient in attack, strong in defense, and able to maintain pressure for long periods, while the Sharks struggled to create enough momentum to stay in the game. For Dave Rennie, the result provides plenty of positives, particularly the performances of Jordie Barrett, Fahai Finianganofo, and Preston. while the return of Ma'a Nonu added an unexpected layer of drama and nostalgia to the evening. At the same time, the coaching staff will know that a dominant result against a depleted club side should be viewed in the correct context. The real challenge for the All Blacks lies ahead, particularly when they face stronger international opposition. What matters now is how the lessons from this performance translate into those bigger matches. The biggest question is whether players who impressed against the Sharks can carry that confidence into more demanding tests, and whether the All Blacks can maintain the same level of discipline, intensity, and execution when the opposition has the personnel and quality to punish mistakes. For Barrett, the match strengthened his reputation as a highly influential inside center. For Phinianganofo, it was an opportunity to show that his attacking ability can translate onto the international stage. For Preston, it was a valuable first test start that demonstrated composure under pressure. And for Nonu, the evening was a reminder that experience and competitive fire can still make an impression, even after many years at the highest level. In the end, the 54-0 result may have made the contest look straightforward, but the individual stories made the night much more interesting. The All Blacks leave Durban with a convincing victory and several selection questions for Dave Rennie to consider, while the Sharks are left to reflect on a difficult performance against a far more experienced international outfit. The most memorable image may still be Ma'a Nonu standing opposite the All Blacks before kickoff. But once the rugby began, Jordie Barrett, Phinianganofo, and Kyle Preston ensured that the visitors had plenty of their own stories to tell. And with bigger challenges waiting ahead, the real significance of this performance will ultimately be measured not by the size of the scoreline, but by whether the All Blacks can take this momentum, confidence, and attacking sharpness into the matches that matter most.